I've worked in the morgue for 8 years, and I thought I'd seen everything. They brought in a body just after midnight. No ID. No cause of death. When I unzipped the bag, it was me. And the bruise on his throat? It matched my hands. Tonight I clock out at 11:42. That's the exact time I die. I have worked at the county morgue for 8 years. It is not as dramatic as people imagine. There are no sudden screams, no lights flickering, no shadowy figures in the hallway. Mostly it is paperwork. Coffee that tastes faintly metallic. The hum of refrigeration units that never stop running. Death, after a while, becomes procedural. I clock in at 11 each night. I log the bodies. I clean instruments. I assist with autopsies when needed. The fluorescent lights flatten everything into the same pale shade of gray. Even grief looks muted under those lights. Tonight began like every other shift. Rain tapping against the narrow basement windows. The smell of disinfectant. The quiet. At 12:17 in the morning, the double doors buzzed. 2 paramedics rolled in a gurney. Found him in an alley, one of them said. No wallet. No phone. No visible trauma. I signed the intake sheet. Standard procedure. The zipper rasped loudly in the otherwise silent room as I opened the body bag. And then I saw myself. Not similar. Not close. Identical. Same thin scar above the right eyebrow from when I was 12 and fell off my bike. Same crooked lower tooth. Same faint dimple on the left cheek. My own face, drained of color, eyes half open. I remember thinking something strangely practical. This must be a mistake. I checked the chart again. Unidentified male. Approximately 38 years old. I am 38 years old. The paramedics had already left. The room felt smaller. The humming of the refrigeration units louder. I leaned closer to the body, trying to find something different. A mole I didn't have. A wrinkle that wasn't mine. That is when I noticed his hand. On his left ring finger was a faint pale band where a wedding ring should have been. I am not married. My hands began to shake. I stepped back from the table and nearly tripped over the rolling stool. My first instinct was denial. Some kind of elaborate prank. A hallucination brought on by lack of sleep. I had pulled double shifts all week. I walked to the restroom and stared at myself in the mirror. Same scar. Same face. Same eyes. I splashed water on my face. When I looked up again, my reflection stared back normally. Alive. Breathing. I returned to the autopsy room. He was still there. Waiting. I forced myself to begin the standard examination. External check first. No bruising. No lacerations. No defensive wounds. His skin was cool, but not cold. I placed 2 fingers against his neck out of reflex. There was no pulse. But his skin felt warm. That is when I noticed something I had missed before. A small bruise forming along his throat. Finger-shaped. As if someone had strangled him. As if someone with hands my size had wrapped them around his neck. My heart started pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Then the overhead lights flickered once. Just once. When they steadied, his eyes were no longer half open. They were fully open. And they were looking directly at me. I did not move. Not because I was brave. Because I was afraid that if I did, he would move too. His eyes were open now. Fully. Calmly. Not glazed the way they should be. They were focused. On me. I stepped closer to the table, telling myself it was a trick of the light. Muscles relax after death. Eyelids shift. That is normal. I leaned over him. His pupils were dilated. I swallowed and forced myself to whisper, "You're not real." The fluorescent lights buzzed above us. And then I saw it. His chest. It rose. Barely. But it rose. I stumbled backward so hard I knocked a tray of instruments to the floor. The clatter echoed violently in the room. When I looked back, his chest was still again. Flat. Motionless. My breathing became ragged. I told myself it was adrenaline. Stress. I was projecting movement onto stillness. I had to prove it. I placed my hand against his sternum. Nothing. No heartbeat. No breath. But his skin was warm. Warmer than before. My gaze drifted back to the bruise on his throat. The shape was clearer now. 5 distinct marks. 5 fingers. My fingers. I lifted my own hand and compared it. The alignment was perfect. A cold realization began creeping in. What if this wasn't a double? What if this was me? Not a twin. Not a stranger. A version. A future. I remembered something strange from earlier that day. I had woken up with soreness in my hands. A dull ache in my knuckles. I assumed I had slept wrong. Now my fingers throbbed again. The overhead speaker crackled suddenly. "Intake correction," the dispatcher's voice said through static. Time of death estimated between 11:30 and 11:50 p.m. I clocked in at 11. I was alone in the autopsy room at 11:30. The memory came back in fragments. The lights flickering earlier in the shift. A brief blackout that lasted no more than a second. The feeling that someone was standing behind me. And a sudden surge of panic I couldn't explain. My hands clenched involuntarily. I looked down at the body's throat again. The bruise looked fresher. Darker. As if pressure was being applied in real time. My hands were still hovering above him. Without meaning to, I realized my fingers were tightening. I yanked them away. The bruise stopped darkening. I stared at him. Or at me. His lips parted slightly. And then, he inhaled. A long, slow breath. My own lungs seized as if they had forgotten how to work. His eyes shifted. Not wildly. Not violently. Just enough to meet mine. And in them, I saw recognition. Not confusion. Not fear. Recognition. His mouth moved. No sound came out. But I could read it. Stop. The lights flickered again. When they steadied, the table was empty. The sheet lay flat. No body. No bag. No intake form. Nothing. The room was silent except for the steady hum of the refrigeration units. My hands were shaking uncontrollably now. I ran to the intake desk. The logbook was open. There was an entry written in my handwriting. Male. Late 30s. No identification. Cause of death, manual strangulation. Pronounced at 11:42 p.m. Name of deceased, my name. I do not remember writing it. I do not remember leaving the room. But it is there. Signed. Dated. Time stamped. I am writing this now at my desk in the morgue office. The clock reads 11:37 p.m. In 5 minutes, if the report is correct, I will be dead. And if someone unzips the bag after midnight, I hope they don't look too closely at my hands.